Hello and welcome to Sports News Africa, the home of Africa's sporting conversation. In this special edition, we'll look back at how the 30th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations was won, with the stories that gripped the continent. So here's what's coming up on today's programme. Equatorial Guinea stepped up to hold the Cup of Nations after Morocco is stripped of hosting duties. Ivory Coast opened with a draw against Guinea despite Gervinho red card. And Lady Luck failed to shine on Mali after Guinea won the lots draw to make the last 8. Thank you for watching Sports News Africa. I'm Angela Agor. The road to the African Cup of Nations final was already full of potholes before the ball was kicked. Morocco, the chosen hosts of the tournament, wanted the competition delayed because of the fear of the spread of the Ebola virus that had claimed over 10,000 lives, primarily in Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea. However, the Confederation of African Football dismissed Morocco's concerns and gave them an ultimatum to either hold the tournament or face being thrown out of the competition.
It was here at Marrakesh Stadium that the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations was due to be held. But with just 3 months before the opening game, Morocco pulled out because of fears over the possible spread of the Ebola virus. The African Football Confederation rejected the country's calls to postpone the event and in early November issued an ultimatum to the kingdom, giving them 5 days to change their mind.
We don't have any visibility in terms of the development of this virus. That's where we are today, a request for information that we will subsequently discuss.
But no offers from alternative host nations were forthcoming. The African Football Confederation reached out to various countries in vain, including previous Africa Cup of Nations and World Cup hosts South Africa. And when Morocco officially announced its decision not to host the tournament, its team was immediately expelled. A sanction that Moroccan football fans are struggling to come to terms with.
The whole of Morocco loves football and would have loved to play in the 2015 Cup of Nations, but it's a shame that we've been deprived of that. It's not right.
Equatorial Guinea stepped up to the mark less than 2 months before the scheduled start of the competition. The 2012 co-hosts of the Africa Cup will now compete as the host nation, despite having been disqualified from the preliminaries in August after fielding an ineligible player. It's a race against the clock for this former Spanish colony, and by late December the Malabo authorities were offering reassurances.
We can't get things up to 100% in 2 months, only to 84 or 85%. In any case, regarding whether the stadiums are up to standard, I can assure you that both stadiums at Ebebiyín and Mongomo will be ready for competition.
While the stadiums may be ready, it's unlikely there will be enough accommodation for the numbers of fans from competing countries expected to descend upon the small West African country. But with just 2 months to prepare for a major tournament, simply staging 32 games over 3 weeks of competition will rank as a major achievement.
So 16 national teams prepared to do battle for the Africa Cup of Nations with the knowledge that 6 wins would enable them to go all the way and lift the trophy. The Ivory Coast, with their star-studded squad, were in Group D alongside Cameroon, Guinea and Mali. However, they started the competition in inauspicious circumstances against Guinea in Malabo.
Group D favourites Ivory Coast breathed a sigh of relief on Tuesday as they came from behind to draw their opening match in Malabo. Guinea took the lead 8 minutes before the interval when Lyon striker Mohamed Yattara lashed the ball high into the roof of the net after the Ivory Coast defence made a mess of dealing with a cross from Sili Nacional standing skipper Ibrahima Traoré. Gervinho, who had been the Ivorians' most enterprising player and hit the woodwork in the first half, then saw red just before the hour mark after a clash in the Guinea box, which left the impressive Naby Keita on the ground. Traoré then crashed a shot against the bar for Guinea before substitute Doumbia of CSK Moscow came on to equalise 18 minutes from time.
Like all the other matches, I think today we saw kind of how the Africa Cup of Nations tournament works. It's not at all easy. I think in the first half we looked a little sloppy. We were having all sorts of problems. but that's football. I think we responded well. Of course, when Gervinho got a red card, it was tough. He's an important player, but luckily we have 23 players, and you saw that Doumbia entering the game is what made the difference.
Guinea, for their part, were left to rue the chances they missed to take the game away from the Elephants, but they remain hopeful of qualifying with 2 more matches remaining.
We could have won the match, kept our 1-0 lead. Being one man up, Gervinho got expelled from the game. So it was a little frustrating because we didn't handle the last 20 minutes well, but we still ended up with 1 point for the tie, and we're going to be well prepared for the other 2 matches.
Guinea will play Cameroon on Saturday evening, with Ivory Coast taking on Mali.
Another draw against Mali in their second Group D fixture meant that a win would see them through to the knockout phase of the competition. And the Elephants duly did this to the top the group courtesy of a 1-0 victory against Cameroon. However, with Mali and Guinea having identical records in the standings, it was Guinea who went through to the last 8 in bizarre fashion.
All tears for Mali when they exited the African Cup of Nations on Thursday, purely thanks to Lady Luck. She clearly favoured Guinea, who moved through to the quarter-finals after a drawing of lots saw their Guinea's team name drawn first. The deadlock was a result of identical match standings for the 2 teams after they had both secured draws in games against Ivory Coast, Cameroon and each other in Group D. Boubacar Diarra, the president of Mali Football Association, termed the process of drawing the lots as evil after the process placed his team third in the group, leaving Guinea in second place and headed for the quarter-finals.
It makes me feel very bad. Malians will live today. It hurts me. This is the greatest evil that anyone can go through. It hurts a lot.
On the other hand, Guinea is now celebrating their move to the quarterfinals, a huge boost to a nation hit hard by the Ebola virus.
C'est une joie, on en avait besoin.
For what has been done during the last 2 years, those kids were deserving to go on. It's the youngest team in the tournament, and yet they're technically very skilled. We will now have a chance to bring in players who could be in line so far due to wounds. I thank God we made the right choices.
Et on vient, on passe le premier tour. Personne ne nous attendait. On était jadis appelés les petits poussins de la poule.
Only twice before has the tournament needed a draw to separate teams, in 1972 and 1988.
It's a joy for us, and we badly needed it. With Ebola, we lost more than 2,000 lives. Today, Guinea is in dire need of this victory, which is so important for us. Guinea youth will be very happy and proud of their side. They fought like lions and ended up with a qualification abroad towards the next round. Nobody was expecting us there. We were even nicknamed in the past the chicken of the group.
Ivory Coast's 1-0 win over Cameroon prevented all 4 sides from having to take part in the draw. Guinea is now placed second in Group D and will face Ghana in the quarterfinals on Sunday.
Welcome back to Sports News Africa. Group C of the Africa Cup of Nations was labelled the Group of Death. No sooner had the teams of Ghana, Senegal, South Africa and tournament favourites Algeria been pulled in the last draw last December. 4 times winners Ghana hadn't won the competition for 33 years, and after appointing Avram Grant as head coach at the end of November, expectations were low. However, after losing 2-1 to Senegal in their opening encounter, they went on to beat Algeria 1-0 and needed to win against South Africa to progress to the knockout phase of the competition.
It was preparation and attitude through 90 minutes that made all the difference in a 2-1 victory for Ghana over South Africa, according to Black Stars coach Avram Grant. South Africa, who led from the 16th minute, failed to maintain their attacking attitude and faded into the second half, while Ghana piled on the pressure.
I think we did a very good preparation that it's helped us in the second half of this game and last game. And the switch, it's because players was tired, they did their best, and we need more fresh players to come and help us, and they did very, very well, all the 3.
A disappointed Sheikhs Mashaba said his team lacked their first half aggression after the break.
Tonight, it was a game of two halves. First half, we played very well, we got a goal, and come second half, we went to sit at the back, we invited pressure for ourselves. That's why if you see the goals that we conceded, it was because of us standing in front of the keeper, obscuring him, not able to see what is actually happening. And we were very, very sluggish in going to close people down.
Algeria's triumph over Senegal with a 2-0 win meant the Black Stars leapfrogged Senegal in the group standings to go through to the quarterfinals alongside the Desert Foxes, while Senegal and South Africa exited the competition. Black Stars striker Asamoah Gyan said that experience and attitude made all the difference in their win on Tuesday night.
This particular game is due to mental toughness. We were mentally tough. Although we conceded the first goal, we came back. We had to fight throughout the 90 minutes, and then at the end of the day, we won. And secondly, we won this game by experience. Although we've got young players, but I'm talking about the country as in whole. If you compare all the countries, Ghana has participated a lot in African Cup of Nations, and we've got a lot of experience, and I think that was the main key of this victory.
Ghana and Algeria joined Tunisia and DR Congo, as well as Equatorial Guinea and Congo Brazzaville in the quarters.
So what of the groups A and B? Here's how they finished. Host Equatorial Guinea defied the odds to come through Group A in second place behind Claude Leroy's Congo after beating much-fancied Gabon 2-0 in their final group match. And Tunisia topped Group B and were joined by the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations looked like this. The two Congos would play each other at Bata Stadium on the 31st of January, followed by Tunisia against Equatorial Guinea. The winners of Group C, Ghana, would face Guinea in Malibu Stadium, followed by the game of the quarterfinals favourites Algeria against Ivory Coast. With the group stages over, it was hoped that the knockout phase of the competition would sharpen the offensive appetite of the sides and produce better finishing than that which had been produced so far.
It was a classic round of African football. The quarter-finals of the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations was full of high-quality games, surprises and emotion. Ivory Coast capital Abidjan was roaring with joy after the Elephants defeated Algeria in emphatic style 3-1 in what had been dubbed as an early final. Quarter-finalists in last year's World Cup, Algeria had been tipped as tournament favourites.
I think we've beaten the best team in the competition. We had to stay organised for the whole game to try to block them, and we had to be strong on set plays.
Captain Yaya Toure and his teammates are now clear favourites as they go into the semi-finals against the Democratic Republic of Congo, who recovered from 2 goals down with just 25 minutes to go to beat Congo Brazzaville 4-2 in an epic nail-biter.
Often when you're up 2-0, you tend to think the game is over. We used that a little bit to our advantage and we continued to push.
Ghana's Black Stars had an easy 3-0 victory over Guinea to reach their 5th straight semi-final in the Cup of Nations. They now face home team and surprise semi-finalists Equatorial Guinea.
It's very difficult to play against the home team. Of course, if we come with all the home supporters, it's in their country. But every game is a challenge. Our group was a challenge. Today it was a challenge. It will be, again, big challenge. And it's a semi-final.
Equatorial Guinea qualified over Tunisia thanks to a highly controversial penalty awarded in injury time. Javier Balboa converted from the spot and then netted a free kick in extra time to take Equatorial Guinea through 2-1. Tunisia was furious. Equatorial Guinea's coach Esteban Becker said he understood the protest but refused to be drawn into the refereeing debate.
Anyone would complain about a penalty given in the last minutes. I would have done the same. But after that penalty, we still had to score a goal. And it was a good thing that we had a specialist in Javier Balboa.
The Confederation of African Football has so far refused to comment on the penalty. While Tunisia fumes over what might have been, the 4 remaining teams will now have their eyes firmly on the semi-finals to come.
So here's how the semi-finals for the Africa Cup of Nations shaped up. The Democratic Republic of Congo had not reached the semi-finals of the Africa Cup of Nations since they last won the tournament back in 1974 as Zaire. But in Ivory Coast, Florent Ibengue's men came up against arguably the strongest squad in this year's competition, led by the African Player of the Year, Yaya Toure. The second semi-final saw the host Equatorial Guinea face Ghana, who had experience on their side, having reached the semi-final stage in the last 4 Africa Cup of Nations. Welcome back to Sports News Africa as we continue our review of the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations. The Ivory Coast moved a step closer to winning their first continental title since 1992 with a 3-1 defeat of the Democratic Republic of Congo at Barta Stadium. The Elephants' French coach Hervé Renard said his team were peaking at the right time.
Thousands of highly charged and motivated Ivory Coast football fans on Wednesday trooped to Barta Stadium in Equatorial Guinea to drum up support for their team, the Elephants, in their clash against the Leopards of Democratic Republic of Congo in the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations. And as expected, the Elephants did not disappoint, and at the final whistle had trampled the Leopards, beating them 3-1 to sail into the Cup's finals. The presence of President Joseph Kabila during the match did not help the Leopards much. More drama unfolded during a post-match press conference as Ivory Coast coach Hervé Renard made it clear he was not in any celebratory mood despite his team's victory.
I didn't like this game. I think we didn't do all the things very well. We were sometimes too easy. Maybe we didn't respect sometimes the opponent. I always said this team came back from behind against Congo Brazzaville, so maybe the players are not listening, but you have always to be careful when you have a player like DRC in front of you. And we were able to make the difference a long time before.
However, he congratulated DR Congo for withstanding the tough competition in their group stage.
So the most important is to reach the final and to congratulate Congo, DRC for their tournament. We were in the same group stage, it was very tough. So congratulations to them, and we'll try to bring the cup in Abidjan. This is the most important.
On his part, Florent Ibengue, coach of the Democratic Republic of Congo, said the loss to Ivory Coast was due to the malicious defensive match played by Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast has been smart. They have had one day less, and we were precisely expecting much from this. But when you run after a result and you are facing a regrouped side, you indeed need to be technically sharp.
In the second semi-final, Ghana were coasting to a comfortable 3-0 win over Equatorial Guinea in Malabo, with goals from Wakoso Mubarak in the first half and 2 second-half goals from the Ayew brothers. But with just 7 minutes remaining, riot police were deployed to quell violent home supporters who attacked the Ghana section of the crowd.
Riot police used batons and tear gas to quell violent home supporters who launched missiles and water bottles onto terrified Ghana fans as well as onto the pitch at Malabo Stadium. The tension had been clear at half-time when the Gabon referee Eric Otogo and Ghana players had to be escorted to the dressing rooms by security forces, with Ghana already leading 2-0. Events reached boiling point after Ghana added a third, and furious Equatorial Guinean fans began to hurl missiles in the Ghanaian section of the crowd. Fearful for their lives, the Ghanaian supporters raced from the terraces to take shelter from behind one of the goals. This Ghana supporter couldn't believe the events unfolding before her very eyes.
All of a sudden, because we started scoring, then these people started throwing water, canned drinks. You can see some of our people have carts. their stomach, their head, their eyes, bleeding. It's uncalled for. And what is surprising is the police are just standing.
A helicopter hovered overhead as harassed officials dithered over whether or not to abandon the game. The players stood in the centre circle for their own safety as they watched in disbelief. But it was the Ghanaian fans who bore the brunt of the attack.
They even urinate in the bottle they throw on us, or we did not retaliate anything. Until when they started to throw the big stones. I can witness about 4 of my colleagues, their head was broken. So we couldn't stand it anymore. We have to rush to the pitch. And it was very disaster. This is very disgrace. Disgrace to CAF, disgrace to Africa.
The Confederation of African Football met on Friday to review and consider what decisions to take on the chaotic scenes witnessed by a global audience. But one thing is certain, it's not football that everyone will be talking about.
And that's the end of this special edition of Sports News Africa. Join us next time when we will bring you all the latest from Africa and around the world. Bye for now.